Winter Field Day is a lot of fun. It's an officially sanctioned WCARES event. In the past, we've gathered at various places, over at Paul's house, in the area right in front of Paul's house at the Moreland Estates where he lives, and we've also done it up on the top of Radnor over there where the Vanderbilt Observatory is. This year, obviously, we're not going to be able to gather, so it's an individual sport. However, the great news is that the folks at Winter Field Day have decided to let us specify a club name when we submit our logs, and so our individual accomplishments are still out there, but our scores will all combine to create a WCARE score so that we can kind of compete with other groups. And we'll talk about that more in a minute. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about. What is Winter Field Day? When is it held? Where can I find the official rules? What's different this year? The bands, modes, and frequencies, the categories, class, and the exchange, how the scoring works, how to log your contacts, and then a couple of internet-based opportunities, just like we had back in Summer Field Day. There's a live chat via the Discord app or website, and then there's real-time scoring available at wcares.live on the internet for those of you who are working Winter Field Day and have internet access from wherever you are. And then finally, some resources. So let's go ahead and jump into this. So what is Winter Field Day? Well, it's like Summer Field Day, but with misery. It is an emergency communications exercise. It's an official WCARES event. It's a chance to solve some problems that you might run into if you tried to deploy in the winter. But best of all, it's an excuse to play radio with like-minded weirdos. All right, so when is it? It is January the 30th. It's 2 weeks from today. We start transmitting at 1 p.m., and the thing runs for 24 hours until 1 p.m. on Sunday. Now, you have the ability to set up in advance. You can start setting up on Friday at 1 p.m. Central Time, but you can't spend more than 12 hours setting up. And I'm not sure why anybody would need to spend 12 hours setting up. But anyway, you're allowed up to 12 hours of that 24-hour period. And for those who are submitting their logs, have to turn in the logs by the end of February, the first day of March. Actually, I guess our time, probably like 5 o'clock in the morning on or 7 o'clock at night, I guess, on the end of February is when it's due. As far as the official rules, there's a 7-page PDF that's available at winterfieldday.com. Winterfieldday.com is the official website for this event. And everyone who's participating should go read that 7-page set of rules. I'm not going to cover all of them. I'm going to cover most of them, but there's some subtlety in there that you might want to read about. But anyway, 7 pages, it's not that much. And a lot of that is just stuff that you won't care about anyway, like the file format of the Cabrillo log file and some things like that. But we're going to hit all the highlights in this presentation. So what is different this year? Well, really nothing's different from last year except for the COVID-19 stuff, which is simply, as I said, when you go to turn in your logs, you can specify a group or club name inside the log file, and then our scores will aggregate. That club name is going to be the same as it was back in the summer, which is WCARES-TN, all uppercase. Not sure if it matters, but WCARES-TN. You don't need to write that down. I'm going to send you an email with a lot more information later. And if you do submit that log, with WCARES-TN as the club name, your individual score is still going to be visible and published. All right, so bands, modes, and frequencies. All of the amateur bands except the work bands. So no 12, 17, 30, and 60. And this is true of every contest. You got to stay away from those bands. HF, VHF, UHF. Now, no VHF or UHF repeaters, okay? So it's got to be simplex if you're going to use VHF, UHF. If you're doing voice on simplex. As far as modes go, phone, CW, or digital. And their rules say that even if it's DMR or some other digital mode that uses voice, as far as they're concerned, if you use your voice, that is phone. That's not digital. And there's note there in yellow, because FT8, FT4 aren't set up to give the exchange, you cannot use those digital formats. They have a list here of suggested frequencies, and I've copied this straight from the rule book, but the rule PDF. But you can kind of throw those out the window. People are going to find each other wherever they can find each other, so you don't need to stick to those particular frequencies. You might find people up above those frequencies in the band. Also, another note here: if you're doing 6 meters or VHF, UHF, don't hang out and clog up the simplex calling frequency, the national calling frequencies. All right, so there's 3 categories of participation in this event. And suddenly I can't use there we go. So you can either be a home station, you can be an indoor station, which is indoors but not at your house, and then there's outdoor. So let's look at each one of these. A home station is defined as inside a home or inside a structure attached to a home, like a garage. And if you use a previously installed antenna system or any kind of station components that are previously installed, even if you're operating outside from your house, that still makes this a home station. Indoor is different from home in that it's not your home. And they are encouraging you to get away from your home and go set up somewhere else. That's kind of the whole purpose of this, right? Is to treat it as an emergency deployment. So if you're somewhere indoors, like, the EOC would be an example. You're inside, you're in a heated, place, but it's not your house. That would be the indoor category. And there's 1,500 bonus points for not working from home if you're indoors. The outdoor category, that's where you are not at your home, or if you are at home, you're at least 30 feet outside from your station, and you're not using any previously set up antenna system or station components, and you can operate from a vehicle. So if you want to work out of your car, you probably know that the last few years I've done this by renting a U-Haul. It's not insulated. It's just a kind of a box truck, and that qualifies as outdoors. You don't have to be out in the open. You can be inside a tent. You can be inside some kind of shelter that's not insulated. And that's outdoors. So now there's 1,500 bonus points for working outdoors. And since you're not at home, there's another 1,500 bonus points for not being a home station. So there's 3,000 bonus points right there for operating outdoors. So pretty good if you're trying to bump up your score. Okay, so we've just talked about the categories. Now, the other part of the exchange is class. The class is a number that represents how many stations that you have set up that are capable of simultaneous operation. So as it says here, even if you've got 10 rigs set up, if it's just you can't use more than one rig at a time. So your class is still just going to be a 1, no matter how many radios you set up. If you and your spouse, let's say, are working this together, like Tim and Joyce might, even if they got 10 radios set up, there's only 2 of them, so their class is going to be 2. The exchange for this contest is your call sign, your class plus the category, and then the ARRL section. Now, class plus category, what does that mean? It means like 1 and either an O for outdoor, I for indoor, or H for home. So what would an example look like of the exchange? Well, there's so many ways to do this. You can't go by this specifically, but let's say you're doing sideband. I might call, CQ field day for November 4, Charlie, Charlie, Bravo. Maybe Doug answers me and just says Whiskey 4 Delta Mike Lima. And I say, Whiskey 4 Delta Mike Lima, I am 1 Hotel Tennessee. That's one station, 1 rig at possible. And then hotel for home is the abbreviation for H, and then Tennessee. And I say QSL. He says, QSL, please copy 1 Oscar Tango November. So 1 O for outdoor, and then Tango November, Tennessee. And I say 73 and good luck. This is November 4th, Charlie, Charlie, Bravo, calling CQ Field Day. So that's, if I'm running the frequency, that could be what I would say. And that's how that works. CW is a lot more abbreviated. You can see it listed right there. It goes by pretty fast. So that's how that works. Now let's talk about scoring. This is the formula for your score. It's your total QSO points times your power multiplier times the number of bands and modes within each band as a multiplier, plus any bonus points you've got. So let's look at those one at a time. Pardon me. QSO points. So if you are using phone, every contact is 1 point. CW and digital, each contact is 2 points. So you're going to double the number of points by using CW or digital. For power multiplier, if you're transmitting more than 100 watts, there's a 1x multiplier. In other words, there's no multiplier. You don't get any benefit from in your score from using more power. If you're transmitting 100 watts down to QRP levels, you can double your score by doing that. And if you want to run 5 watts CW or 10 watts digital or sideband, you can quadruple your score. Okay. Band multiplier, that's just how many bands you work and what modes on the band. So if I work 20 meter sideband and 20 meter CW and 40 meter sideband, that's 3 multipliers. So I'm going to triple my score by doing those 3 different modes and bands combinations. So obviously the more modes and bands you do, the much higher your score is going to be. So that has implications for your antenna setup, right? So you've got to, have the antenna that can work all the bands that you want to work. If you are serious and you are trying to, get all the multipliers you can. There's 4 different bonus points, and they're all 1,500 points each. So you can claim 1,500 bonus points if you're not using commercial power. So you can run off battery, you can run off a generator, but as long as you're not on the grid, you can claim 1,500 extra points. If you are operating outdoors, that's 1,500 points. If you are not at home, that's 1,500 points. And oddly enough, that combines with the outdoors. So if you're at home, you don't get those bonus points. If you're indoors, but not at home, working remotely somewhere, that's 1,500 points. If you're outdoors, then you get the 1,500 points for outdoors, and you get the 1,500 points for not being at home. So there's 3,000 points for that. And finally, if you make a satellite contact, there's a 1,500 bonus points for that. If you are going to try satellite, as in Summerfield Day, they want you to only make 1 contact so that you don't clog up the airwaves trying to make a bunch of contacts, while you're within the footprint of that satellite. So just 1 QSO only for satellite. All right, so you have a lot of decisions to make now when you're trying to figure out how serious you are about this and what your level of participation is going to be and your gear and location and power and all that. So let's talk about some of those. How many hours do you want to operate? Are you going to try to work many hours? If so, there's a little more consideration for power and clothing and everything else. Where are you going to operate? Are you just going to, work from your home station, which is totally fine? Or are you going to try to go out in the field and do this as an emergency exercise and operate that way? What are you going to do for power? It's perfectly fine if you want to stay home and use just your power on the grid, no problem. If you do want to run off batteries or generator, you will get a lot more points that way. And you will need to think about how many amps you're going to draw. If you're using battery power, how much battery do you need? How many hours are you going to operate? What's your current draw for the gear you've got set up? What kind of radios do you want to use? You can use like a KX3 that just kind of sips battery power, or you can use something with a really nice screen that maybe draws, say, an amp, per hour just with the display. So your power source kind of can help dictate those choices. What antennas are you going to use? If you do want to try to work 160 meters, obviously you got to have an antenna for that, and all the other bands you want to work. So if you want to just throw up a 20 meter, 40 meter linked dipole and call it a day and just work those two bands, that's fine. If you want to try to do something a little more ambitious, you've got to have antennas for that. And obviously that means you got to have antenna supports for that. If you're going to work outdoors, you're going to have to try to come up with a way to put your antennas in the air somehow. How are you logging contacts? There's nothing wrong with just logging them on paper and then transferring them to a computer later if you want to turn in your logs. It's easier if you have access to a laptop or something to use the N3FJP software that we always use for field days. And I'm sorry, guys. I just got a text and I have to check it. I'm legally obligated. Okay. So how are you going to log your contacts? How are you going to keep warm? If you're working at night, late at night, that's going to be a consideration. And then are you going to participate in the WCARES online activities, which does require internet access? So if you're working from some other location, maybe you can use your phone as a hotspot to get to the internet from your laptop or something else. But anyway, you have a lot of decisions to make about how you want to do this. The logistics are something that's going to take some time to think about if you're not working from home, on the grid. All right, so back to logging contacts. It's only $8.99 to buy the N3FJP winter contest log. You've probably seen that software before. I've got a video showing how to use it, and I'm going to send an email to everybody, and I'll include a link to that video. Super simple, great software. It's what we use for summer and winter field days. One nice thing about it is it does warn you of duplicate contacts. So in this contest, like most contests, you can't work the same station on the same band in the same mode. It's fine for you to work the same station on the same band with sideband and CW or digital or all three. But if you contact the station on Saturday on 20 meters, and then you come back on Sunday and you contact them again, that contact doesn't count. And they'll probably tell you that this is a duplicate. This software, N3FJP, as you type in the call sign, it lists the possible duplicates based on the entries it's already got in the log for you. And if you actually type in a duplicate contact and hit tab to go to the next field, in a big red box, it says that this is a duplicate. So if you're just doing your contacts with paper and pencil, that you don't have that capability. It does calculate your score. So at the end, when you are ready to write out the log file, the text file that you submit, it asks you about those 4 1,500 bonus points. Did you work outdoors? Did you work, did you use off-grid, power? It calculates everything for you, so you don't have to worry about that. And of course, it does write this log file, this text file, that you will then need to tweak to put in the WCARES TN club line right underneath where the text line where it has the call sign. Again, don't worry about that. I'll send you an email with information about this. As far as the internet-based stuff goes, we set up last year or last summer for field day using the Discord app or discord.com website. I set up a WCARES, what they call server. And that's the icon you see on the left-hand side over there, our little logo. And I created 5 text channels within that server so that we could communicate with each other during field day. So there's actually one there highlighted on the left-hand column there that says field day. And that's where you can type to each other. You can upload pictures from your phone of your station or screenshots or whatever. It was a lot of fun this past summer when we used it. And, there's an app for your phone. You can just use it from their website. But if you have internet access, I recommend that you do create your free Discord account. And in an email that I'm going to send you, there's a link, an invitation link, that if you just click on that link once, it will kind of bind your account to this WCARES server so that you can access this server. You only have to do that one time. And from then on, your account is connected with that server and you can access these 5 channels. Again, I'll send you information about how to do that. And then there's this wcares.live thing. So on the left-hand side of the screen here, you're seeing N3FJP's software. There is, under the settings menu, there is a thing called Web Contest Status Uploader. And if you configure your N3FJP software with the information there, it's in bold and black on the side. If you do that, then when you make contacts periodically, the N3FJP software is going to create a little web page and upload that via FTP to this special place on this website that I hosted with GoDaddy called wcares.live. And then there's a second component to this, and that's running on my computer here at home, where it goes up there to the FTP server and finds all of these individual files and then aggregates them to create this little web page that you see on the right. So as we're running through the contest, those of us who have internet access and who have configured our N3FJP software to do so, will have a line that's shown in this little window that you're seeing on the right in blue. And that's kind of fun. It was fun last year. 84CJ was battling it out with Jeff Stanifer, WB5WAJ, and they were neck and neck trying to figure out who was going to win between the two of them. However, down a little farther, like 5 down, there's me, N4CCB. I was running QRP on battery power, so I had a 4x QRP, bonus. Plus, I was running off the grid, and so I actually had a higher score than both of them. But nobody knew it at the time because you don't see that. Unbeknownst to me, I was feeling so good about myself. I always like to beat Tim at anything, because you probably don't know this, but Tim's kind of competitive. Anyway, Ted Edwards, W3TB, ended up making like 2,000 QSOs. I mean, he was just crazy. He and nobody knew it. He wasn't doing this online, but when the scores all came in, Ted blew everybody out of the water. So it was kind of fun, and I hope anybody who is using N3FJP and has access to the internet will participate in this, because it does give us an idea of how we're doing, and it's kind of fun to just see who's rising up as they work. So last slide here, resources. Again, the official rules are at winterfieldday.com, and everybody should go out and read that. I will send you an email. You might not remember this, but last June, I sent out an email that had a link to a Google Doc that had everything you needed to know about Field Day, including how to join the Discord WCare server, how to configure N3FJP properly, and what to put in your log file before you turn it in. So I'm going to update that email with information specific to Winter Field Day, and I'm going to be sending you that within the next week. So everybody will have that at least a week in advance. And if you have any questions about any of this stuff, shoot me an email, batsoncliff or batsoncliff, that's how it looks, at gmail.com. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen and take any questions that you might have, if any. Just unmute yourselves and ask if anybody has anything.